By the end of today's episode, you'll know how one actor who now has over 1,300 bookings to his name grew his career, along with the best advice that he has to share. Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high-quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Benson, and today I have the opportunity to speak with Aaron Marcus. He's an extremely successful actor who's been doing this for over 40 years. Some of the things that we discuss include what every actor should do before looking for an agent, the smart way to get noticed for union-level speaking roles, even without connections, and how to fix your strategy if agents aren't responding, even when your footage and credits are solid. Ready to dive in? So Aaron Marcus has been a full-time actor for over 40 years and has been booked nearly 1,300 times. To help others with success, he offers private coaching and online workshops and has wrote How to Become a Successful Actor and Model. He shares industry information with those who sign up to his mailing list at howtoactandmodel.com. Thanks so much for joining me, Aaron. I'm really excited to have you here. I love that that website, howtoactandmodel.com. It's so easy to remember for people.
Yeah, the only time it gets a little confusing, I think in Canada, model is M-O-D-L-E.
Mm.
So it's just M-O-D-E-L in the States. But hey, Martin, and I mentioned this to you before, but I just want to share it again. I just have so much respect for what you're doing in the industry with everything from, your coaching, your classes, the headshots. I mean, it's really hard getting started in the industry or advancing a career. And to have somebody in your position who has experienced a lot of things, especially from the directing point of view, which is really, really helpful for actors. I just wanted to say thank you as a fellow actor for all that you do to help people.
Well, thanks. I appreciate those kind words. I'm glad that you find it so helpful. I definitely hear back sometimes from people on the email list and stuff, and it just makes me super excited to be able to help people actually start seeing auditions and moving their careers forward and everything. And that's why I'm so excited to talk to you as well, because you're going to help me in that process of helping people. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your amazing career. What specific steps did you take to get to your first union level speaking roles?
Yeah, so, and I'll try to make this short because it is kind of a long story. It's one that most people don't take. I did things backwards in the sense of I had no interest in acting, never did acting in my life except for one high school play, had like a little part just because I thought it'd be fun. And the shorter version is I thought I was going to be a physical therapist. And I went back to school after dropping out to perform as a songwriter and musician for 7 years. And when I went back to school, I was doing a lot of research and soul searching. And after like probably about a year of trying to figure things out, I decided on physical therapy. So I started taking all the classes I avoided all my life, the sciences, and I happened to meet an actor who did TV commercials. And I was looking for a part-time job, didn't want to work as a bartender or a waiter or anything like that. And he told me what he did. And I thought, that sounds like a great part-time job. It pays well. It doesn't take up a lot of time. It's just perfect. And so I actually started getting started doing acting work part-time while I was a full-time student. And I did that for 2 years. And I actually started getting work, which shocked me. And then I decided right before I finished all my prerequisites and right before I started applying to physical therapy school, I just decided, you know what? I love doing the acting. I have no idea what's going to happen with it. I want to give it a shot. I want to try it for 1 year full time just to see what it's like. And I was already, my late 20s at that point. It's not like I was, a young person getting started. And that has turned into a 40-year career. So, and to answer the other part of your question, my first jobs were either extra work or commercial modeling work. Living in a small market, my home base is in Maryland. And although now and for years I've been traveling a lot for work, but when I first got started, there were some things that came to town. There were shows, there were some movies. And so probably like the biggest first job that I had, there was a show on NBC, and I'm sure most people never heard of it. It was called Homicide: Life on the Street. And there were some phenomenal actors. Andre Brower, who unfortunately passed away. People might know him from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and some great movies that he did, but he was just phenomenal. And so yeah, that was huge for me to actually land a principal role on a great television show.
Nice. Well, I want to dive slightly deeper on this specific topic now, because for a lot of actors, right, like getting a union level speaking role can be quite challenging. Now, you said that you did some background work and just kind of a number of different things. Do you remember your first ever union speaking role that you booked? And what did you do? Was it just like you applied to the casting call somehow and just happened to get an audition and they booked you? And if so, what do you think contributed to that booking? Was it like your acting technique, or did you know someone in the industry? Did you have a connection? What would you say specifically with that happened?
Yeah, so when I first got started, I knew nobody. There was nobody in the industry. My family was not in the business. People were just shaking their heads when I said, you know what, I don't know if I want to be a physical therapist. I want to be an actor. It was right before I got married, too. It was like a couple months before we were about to get married, and still married, so that stuff worked out. But no, didn't have the contacts. What I did have, though, was I did have some agents, and in some smaller markets, you can multi-list. I don't necessarily recommend that for people who are just getting started and might have a full-time job or they're full-time students. I mean, if you start trying to find agents either in the same city or in other states nearby, life gets very complicated and you might not have the time to really, go out and do all this stuff. So I had some agents who were submitting me for things, and yeah, I got submitted. Probably, I don't remember the specific one. Most likely, this is what I'm thinking of. It was probably a training film, a union training film, and there are three different names. It's educational films. Let's see,
Industrial?
corporate films and industrial films. Yeah, those are the three titles. And in my particular area, at one point, I was almost able to make a living just from doing those. There are so many associations based near DC, government agencies. I mean, I was flown to Florida and the Great Lakes, Illinois, outside of Chicago, to do industrials for the Navy. I did things for the Pentagon, all different kinds of organizations. And so I auditioned. And I know you didn't really ask this, or you kind of asked it, but I'll just go with it because I think it'd be helpful for people to know. Like I said, I did things backwards. I got started with no training, which is not really a good idea for actors. And what I quickly learned was that, yeah, I had some good instincts. I seemed to do some things naturally. But what I quickly discovered was that those instincts could only take me so far. If I was auditioning for a scene or I'm on the set and all of a sudden I get a note from a director and they want to see something different, I, I don't know. That's not what I'm feeling right now. And I don't know how to make those adjustments. So what I decided was if I really wanted to pursue this, I need to start studying. And so I started studying with people privately. I was taking small classes, and that really changed my career.
Nice. Well, these days, of course, with so much competition, especially for actors, let's say, who are based in an area like New York or LA, where everybody is an actor and trying to compete. There's also fewer production shooting recently just due to strikes that happened and economic uncertainty and all of that. So, what would you say might be an effective strategy for actors who are looking to get their first union level speaking roles?
So, look, one, you have to be living in an area where there are projects. Unless, and this gets so complicated, and I don't think, look, I'm a vested member in SAG-AFTRA. I get a pension, I've worked long enough, earned enough for that. But I don't think it's really clear as far, and I don't know if I'm getting into too many specifics here, and let me know, and I can just drop it. But when you were talking about trying to get a role, if you're, speaking role, if you're living in a, let's say, a smaller market, I mean, right now, what's happening is I'm finding there are a number of productions, let's say in New York or in LA, where they say you, or Atlanta, you have to be a local hire.
Mhm.
And that just gets very complicated because the union is saying you can't ask someone to work as a local hire. If they only want a true local hire, then they should only be opening up auditions to people who are local. But that's just not reality.
Mhm.
And so it does get, it's even more complicated. But for me, look, I always liked when I would get travel, even if it was for a small role in a production, let's say in Atlanta. And maybe they just either didn't have it in their budget, they didn't want to spend the money to bring somebody in, they would just hire locally. But they said, oh, look, if you're willing to get here as a local, we'd love to, book you for the job. And every actor has a different philosophy on this. And it's not, there's not one that's right or wrong. Mine has been, I've always found that work brings in more work, and you never know what can happen. You can go in for a small role and all of a sudden they love what's going on, and now you're a recurring character. Or, the director loves what you're doing, and you only work that 1 day or 2 days, but now there's another production that director is working on, and the person remembers you and likes what you did and either offers you another job or asks for you to, audition again. So if you are trying to get work as a principal, certainly it would be easier if you're already a union member. And once again, that's a whole workshop that I do as well. But you can try to, and this is how a lot of actors get a union card, is by doing extra work. And unless things have changed, and I know things are always changing, but it used to be if you are brought in as a extra, and once again, if I'm getting into too many specifics, just let me know. But the extras casting director has a list of a certain amount of union extras that they need to hire. And then once they fulfill that, then they can bring in a certain amount of non-union extras. So if the casting director is notified by you, you say, hey, I really want to join the union. Are there any available spaces as a union extra? Well, if they do, and the casting director says yes, you will be brought in and given a union contract as an extra, and you get a voucher. And so if you do that 3 times, then you can join the union. And I think it's not mandatory, but I think it's easier to try to audition for a union project. It's easier for production if you're already a union member. Having said all that, and I don't know if the union's going to be upset with me about this, but it is just what I truly believe. You want to make sure that you're ready to join the union before you jump in and do that, because their number one rule is once you become a union member, you can only do union work. And once again, if you're not living in an area where there's not much union work, then I don't know that that's going to be in your best interest right now, because you want to get as much experience as you can. And unfortunately, for me, there's a lot of non-union work out there. And my thought is yeah, at some point join the union because it will be very helpful to you, but make sure you get a lot of experience first so that when you get the opportunity to audition for a speaking role, you're more prepared for that.
Yeah. No, there's definitely something to be said for the idea of looking for whether it's background work, because I remember a few years ago now at this point, I did a whole YouTube video on how to get those background vouchers more quickly. Um, but the same concept actually can be applied to speaking union roles by focusing on areas that are smaller in terms of production. Like if you're in New York and you're trying to get those things in New York, like let's say Manhattan or something, it's going to be really difficult. But if you can find union productions that are shooting in some like small town somewhere that's far away that there's way fewer actors, it actually becomes both easier to get the vouchers for the background work and to be chosen as a speaking role if you're very talented, and again you can do the local hire sort of thing. So there are definitely ways around it. um
And if I could just jump in for 1 second, and something else that some people don't think of is there might be student films that are being shot and they're willing to sign a union contract, as a, student film, or maybe there's an ultra low budget project happening in your area where, once again, you get paid very, very, very little money, but you'll get a credit, and that can allow you to join the union if you're ready. Because if you're hired as a principal and they signed a contract with the union, that would allow that to happen.
One caveat just to that, I did do a podcast on this topic specifically. You do have to always be careful. Certain things, like certain extremely low budget or certain like student film types of things, some do let you become eligible to join the union, others don't. So
Oh, okay.
whatever the situation is, just kind of research and check the budget or whatever before
And
you.
ask the union.
Yeah,
You can
exactly.
send a note to the or call the local union office and say, would this allow me to join if I did the job? That way you're guaranteed to know exactly what's happening.
Absolutely. Now, this leads into my next question because you're talking about, yes, like don't join the union before you're ready, which is absolutely good advice. But now, when it comes to getting agents, how will an actor know when they're ready to start looking for one? And like, is it possible to get an agent too soon? What do you think on this topic? And then, if it is the right time, how do you recommend they go about it?
Oh, that's a tough question. So, look, agents are not in the business of trying to teach actors how to act. I
Mhm.
mean, what they want to do, what, the good agents do is they bring in people that they can immediately begin submitting for projects. And they want people who are talented, people who could potentially book jobs because that's how they make their money. So what will probably happen, and look, who's to say, are you really ready to do this? What will probably happen, at least I would hope, is that number one, you've got the right kind of headshot. You've got the right materials. You have an effective headshot and you have an effective resume. And I know sometimes because I do a lot of private sessions and I'll put together a resume for somebody, and people sometimes are really surprised because they'll say, well, I'm just getting started. I don't have anything. You'd be surprised how much really important information you could put in an acting resume, even if you've never booked a job before. I mean, just things like training. What classes have you taken? And you don't want to make the mistake that a lot of actors make who are just getting started, and they'll put, acting 101 or beginning acting on their resume as far as their training goes, because an agent is going to look at that and say, I don't know what this means. Or a casting director is going to say, this doesn't tell me anything. So just make sure that you're very specific. Is it, TV commercial acting? Is it acting, for the camera? Is it improv? So anyhow, make sure, number one, you have your materials ready, because otherwise you're going to make a really bad impression, first impression with an agent. And then two, when you are Look, you should be researching the agent before you submit to them, just to make sure it's a legitimate agent, to make sure that they are representing the kinds of people that are right for you. And then hopefully, if the agent has an interest, they're going to ask you to read for them. They're going to give you, cold copy to read or a TV commercial or ask you to do a monologue. Make sure that you are fully prepared for that because making a bad impression, first impression, can kill your chances of ever working with that agent. So that's what I say, make sure that you are ready. And I mean, ultimately, I mean, who knows? Nobody can say, or, okay, well, you've done this, 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 this. Now you are a credentialed actor and you can start working. And I can tell you, for me, a lot of the training that I had was also on the set training, even just working as an extra. You can, depending on the scene, if you're one of 10,000 people in a football stadium, you're probably not going to learn that much from the actors. But you might be, sitting in a coffee shop at a table next to the principals. Watch and learn and see what these people are doing and try to, get that kind of information because it can be invaluable to you.
Excellent. Now, if an actor, let's say, who does have some credits, they're ready for an agent and they have some good footage that's got strong acting in it. But if they've been reaching out to agents for a while, right, and they're just not hearing back, are there any specific steps or things that you recommend that they do?
Yeah. So one of the things that I would question is how are you going about doing this? Typically, agents, because the world has changed, the acting world has changed since I got started. So typically now, if you want representation with an agent, you will, find the tab on their website, upload, your resume. If you have any reels, headshot. Sometimes they want selfies, sometimes they want full body shots. And let's say you hear nothing, like you were saying. So my next suggestion would be I wouldn't trust that the right people are looking at your materials. I would actually send a hard copy to an agent. Get a headshot printed. And I know sometimes agents will tell, their actors, don't bother, getting anything printed. You're not going to need it. Everything is done electronically. And it's true. Most things are done electronically. But this is a great marketing tool. And if you happen to go into a casting director's office to read, and that's rare, except for sometimes I've been told that in TV commercials, sometimes you can do that. I would always recommend bringing in two or three headshots and resumes just in case. You can always ask, hey, would you like a headshot? Most of the time, they're going to say we don't need it. But if you have a hard copy, then send it through the mail directly to that agent and send a nice cover letter. You don't have to talk about all the things that you've done. It's in your resume. And I would also recommend in that cover letter, have your headshot in the upper right-hand corner of your cover letter. Make sure your name is there. Make sure your contact information is there. Love to talk with you about representation for TV, film, commercials, voiceover, industrial, whatever you are interested in doing. And that way you will know that it's actually getting to somebody instead of it just being uploaded because sometimes it's just not seen. I mean, I reached out to some agents for over a year, never heard back from them. And then all of a sudden, and I would stay in touch. I would send them emails. Hey, just wanted to let you know, I just did this, this, and this, hope we get a chance to work together soon. And one time I did ask an agent, I'm just kind of curious, why did you, never get back in touch with me? You know what? We had somebody who was right in your category, and this person was working. They are no longer working with us. Maybe they didn't have the kind of work that they thought would be right for me. And so that's a reason why they decided to expand their office and the types of projects they're going after. Who knows why? So anyhow, sending a hard copy would be a great idea. And maybe every, 6 weeks, just shoot an email to the agent. Don't attach any photos in an email. because people are too nervous about getting a virus and they're not going to open up an attachment that was unsolicited. So just send an email, just staying in touch, but make sure that your face is either in the signature or somewhere in the email so they know what you look like and who you are.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that there's two big takeaways from this. Number one is if you have been reaching out for a long time, you haven't been hearing back, to don't just suddenly like give up and be like, yeah, I guess I'm not going to try again. I mean, as you're saying, there's so many different factors that come into play, and it could just not be the right time for this agent. But if you consistently stay in touch with them over time, eventually things might work. And then I guess the other takeaway is just a matter of sort of being strategic about how you're following up with these people and not doing the same thing that isn't working over and over again. So following up a few different ways. Some actors even go about calling the agency and just kind of asking it, like if you plan out a call in advance, you could just say, "Hey, just wanted to call, make sure that you got my thing." There's plenty of different ways to do it, but it's like don't just keep doing the same thing, and also don't give up.
Yeah, but you know what? I've heard, and look, maybe you're right. I've heard from a number of agents, they typically don't like unsolicited phone calls from people they're not representing because they would be just constantly hit with people who have submitted to them and they're trying to make their living being on the phone, trying to submit talent, trying to negotiate, giving out information. So personally, that would scare me, just going, hey, just checking in. Did you get my headshot? Did you take a look at things? What do you think? Love to talk. I don't know. That would make me a little bit nervous. Maybe it would work for some people and maybe with some agents, but nah, that one would make me just a little bit nervous.
Yeah, it is definitely one that can be seen as controversial. But it's
Oh, actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just
yeah,
one
yeah,
other
yeah.
idea since we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Maybe another thing to do as well is follow them on social media.
Mhm.
And if they post something, then maybe respond to it. You're not talking at all about representation, but hey, really loved what you had to say about this thing. I really appreciate your information. Boom, that's it. And then keep following and keep responding. And then maybe at some point, then you can have a little bit more of a direct contact with them. And, once they've gotten to know you a little bit, they like what you have to say. That way, it's just not some stalker, who's, who's just trying to hound somebody. So, but there are ways. And once again, just one other idea that just popped into my mind. If, like you said, I really loved your idea about, don't keep doing the same thing over and over again if it's not working. Maybe once again on social media, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever you're going or Twitter, or X, maybe learn more about them personally. So maybe they're into martial arts, okay? And maybe that's something that you do as well. And, at some point in a really casual way, you can just throw in, hey, I noticed that, you're doing, I don't know, Taekwondo. And yeah, I've been studying Taekwondo for 10 years and I've got a black belt with that. Just something so there's some kind of connection there. And maybe that's something that will be memorable for them as well.
Yeah. I definitely agree. If you're reaching out one-on-one to specific agents and, not just calling or contacting the agency in general, yeah, like being more personalized and, not phone calling them. If you're reaching out to a general agency, one I did remind myself from my course because I haven't looked at it in a while, but to get back to the phone call thing, the best way if you are going to go about phone calls, because again, this is a controversial thing, is sort of asking about the submissions process and calling specifically the primary agency line, right? So, script example, like, hey, my name is blank, I'm a professional actor. Just wanted to call to find out about your submissions process or what's necessary to be considered for representation. And then essentially what happens is usually, I mean, they'll either say, oh, we're not accepting new submissions, or they may be like, well, here's what we do. And then you say, oh, can I ask a couple questions? This way you sort of, you're not like, hey, I wanted to follow up about my submission, because that I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. That's kind of like annoying. But yeah, I
Yeah.
figured it would be helpful to just kind of pull that up so anybody who's thinking about doing that knows a better way to go about it.
Hey, look, it's been 3 months. I haven't heard back from you. What's going on here? I sent this headshot to you.
Yeah.
Probably not a good move. But I do like your idea of kind of going in sideways a little bit, or even if you're just getting to somebody answering the phones at the front desk.
Mhm.
Hey, I just wanted to find out, I'm really interested in film and television,
You can
with
also
with
find out sometimes like whether again, a lot of people are uncomfortable making calls. So we're not saying at all to make calls. It's just
yeah,
the point is doing different things, but you can ask them and they might even say like, because sometimes agency websites are slightly out of date and the website might say, hey, we are accepting submissions. Then when you call them, hey, we're not accepting submissions, it's like, oh, that's why they haven't been responding to my submissions all this time. So you actually might get some interesting information. But I think the big takeaways here is if you're ready, meaning if you have some like credits or at least like good, strong training, and you're not like already represented in their roster, like numerous other people who look exactly like you know, you're probably going to have a higher shot than if you're just, shotgun blasting out and then you give up after one time and you don't, do anything strategically.
yeah. And the other thing too, just about agents, and I think this is really important for people to understand, is that yes, they're very important to our career, but also just remember they're humans. They're just like us. They're regular people. They happen to be in a position where we want to work, with them. They can really help our career. But the other thing too is it's kind of like asking somebody out on a date. And if they say no,
Mhm.
you go, okay, not a big deal. Well, maybe it is a big deal because you really want to work with the agent, but it's okay. Move on and ask somebody else out. And the fact of the matter is, actors, look, we can market ourselves. I market myself all the time, and we can market ourselves and get jobs without an agent. Uh,
Mhm.
Once again, I just want to make it clear. I do recommend having an agent. But agents can't make a living without us. So please don't give them all the power in the world because they need us as much as we need them. So I think if you keep that in the back of your mind, it might just give you a little bit more confidence and maybe feel a little bit more comfortable when you are sitting down and talking with an agent.
Yeah, and you become more desirable to an agent if you're showing that you can book things on your own consistently. So,
Oh yeah, and something else that I've done, I have booked jobs on my own, and I'll still send it through an agent. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One is, look, I don't have to give up because I'm a union actor. I don't have to give up a 10% commission fee to an agent if I book the job on my own because I don't have exclusive contracts or anything like that. But I still will do that almost every single time for two reasons. One is I don't like negotiating. I don't like dealing with the business stuff. So if anything comes up on that project, I can just ask the agent to handle it. It makes my life a lot better and easier. The other thing too is when you do that, just like with what you said, and this is what reminded me of it, the agent views you as a marketable actor, someone who books jobs, someone who is making the agency money. So the next time a project comes up, why wouldn't they want to submit you and have you towards the top of the list of submissions? Because you're bringing in income. So I think it's a great 10%, or even if you're non-union, 20% investment. And that's also, there's probably no better way to get representation than to contact an agency and say, look, I just booked this job. Would you handle it for me? Love to talk with you about representation and having you take care of it. To me, it seems like a good investment.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Excellent. All right. Well, I have one last primary question for you here, which is
Uh-oh, you're making me nervous here.
no, this should be the easy one. What makes your process of helping actors with getting agents or growing their careers better or different than other coaches who help with the same? And how can actors who are needing help get in touch if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so first of all, I never like to compare myself to other people. I don't compete with other people, whether it's as a coach or an actor.
Mm.
And I used to, by the way, just full disclosure, I used to walk into a casting office and I would see, all these people who look just like me, or I'd see somebody at the beginning of my career and say, I've seen that guy on the TV show. I've seen this guy in a movie. Like, what am I doing here? I did a commercial modeling ad for, I don't know, some hemorrhoid cream. And it's like, what am I doing here? And what I learned after a few years is that it brings out that competition just brings out a lot of negativity. It allows you to lose your focus on what you want to do because you're comparing yourself to other people.
Mm.
And the fact of the matter is, even though we might look very similar and we're going after the same role, we all bring something different to the table. And if I'm right for the role, I'm going to get it. If I'm not right for the role, somebody else is going to get it. And so I've backed off completely with competing. And it's the same thing with coaching. Look, what I do is, and I make this really clear with everybody that I'm working with, my my information and the way that I do things is not the only way to do it. There are lots of different techniques, methods, ideas, philosophies, and it depends on what you are comfortable with. And so, what I can share is information that has been very helpful to me or that I found to be a bad, a bad decision to go in that direction. So, I guess the one thing that I do bring is I bring a lot of experience and I think part of my training too, because look, I can tell you, I've not that many, but I've walked out of classes because I really disliked the teacher. I really disliked their style. They were spirited. They would break people down because they thought that's what needed to be going on and then build you back up, or they knew just enough about you to push your buttons and have you burst into tears. And people would think, wow, that's a real actor. That's a breakthrough. Look, anybody, can make that happen.
Mm.
And for me, that's not a way that I want to be treated or that I will be treated, and it's not a way that I want to learn. So I guess what I bring to the table is that I know what it's like to get started. And like we said at the very beginning here, I knew nothing about the industry. I did not have people helping me. I found that there were a lot of actors who were very competitive, even when I decided after 4 years of working in local markets in Virginia and DC and Maryland, and eventually in the Philly, and then kind of tiptoed into Jersey. And then when I felt I was ready for New York, there were a number of people who would tell me, fellow actors, Aaron, don't bother going to New York. Look, you know how many people are trying to break in every single day? There are people who are starring in TV shows who are out of work right now. And really, you think they're going to get somebody from Baltimore, to go in there? You're going to get your heart broken. Just stay low. And what I found was, yeah, these were people who were very competitive. And they were not really concerned about my heart. They didn't want to see anybody else succeed because they didn't have the courage to try it.
Mm.
And just for everybody who's watching here, for me, I knew that I could go to New York and do everything that I possibly could and fail. I could live I could live with that. I wouldn't be happy, but I could live with that. If I knew that I did everything that I was supposed to do and I prepared, what I couldn't live with was not trying.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't try, every time I saw a TV show, a movie, a national TV spot that might have been shot in New York, I would always be thinking, I wonder what if. I wonder if I could have done that. That I couldn't live with. So wherever you're at in your career, whether it's getting started or advancing, look, get the right information, use that information and try it. And you've got to filter out everything that everybody says to you. So getting back to the second part of your question, how people can reach me. So there are a few different ways. Certainly, like you mentioned, just go to howtoactandmodel.com. Sign up. You'll be on my free email list. I'll even send you a great bonus video. It's 6 secrets to mastering home auditions, self-tapes. It's a great video that all actors or even commercial models need to know about. And right from there, you can also learn about my mentoring programs. I've got a tab for that. You can follow me on Instagram. It's just Aaron R. Marcus for Robert. Or on X, same thing. And then also on my website, thehowtoactamodel.com, you can also read about my book as well as my YouTube channel. And I've got over 500 free quick tip videos. I try to upload them every week. And it's a great library. Just click on the YouTube icon on the website, go there, subscribe, click the notification bell. And this is my way of giving back to the acting community because, like I said before, it's hard getting started. And I struggled and I spun my wheels and did things by trial and error. And I knew early on that if I ever had success, I want to help other people. And so maybe one of the other differences, it's not just a money thing for me. I truly like, and I know this is true for you as well. I truly like helping people and guiding them in the right direction and helping them avoid the scams and the horrible things that are going on out there. That's very easy to get sucked into. So anyhow, those are great ways to get in touch with me. And once you're on my email list, you can also, shoot me an email. If you have a question about something, more than happy to try to answer it for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. This has been amazing. Really appreciate your time today.
Oh, this was fun. And once again, thank you so much for all that you do for the community.
Thanks. Well, thanks for listening. Now, if you want to dive even deeper on booking roles, I highly recommend checking out my podcast called How to Meet Casting Directors and Build Relationships, which is episode number 157. I dive deep on networking and how to build up those relationships with the decision makers that can eventually lead to bookings. Check it out. Again, it's episode number 157, How to Meet Casting Directors and Build Relationships, and it's on the Actor's Career Compass. And if you found the podcast helpful so far, I would very much appreciate if you could leave a review. It helps other actors find the podcast. Just go to ratethispodcast.com/actor success. Lastly, if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can learn more about how that works on my website, martinbenson.com, and we can speak and see whether the coaching program would be a good fit for you. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.